Okay, welcome everybody. I want to call the meeting to the Planning Commission, Washoe County Planning Commission, Tuesday, July 6th, 2021 at 6 p.m. To order. Do we have a determination of a quorum?
Larry Chesney,
Present.
Francine Donchik,
Present.
Sarah Savilicek,
Here.
Michael Flick. I see someone named Mike on Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and promote just in case. In the meantime, Kate Nelson,
Here.
Larry Payton,
Here?
Pat Phillips,
Here.
Michael Flick, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. I guess Commissioner Savilicek, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, is that Commissioner Flick?
Yes,
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
you're present. Welcome.
thank you.
Okay, we have ethics law announcement. Council Gustafson. Thank you. Appeal procedure, Secretary Lloyd.
Yeah, most decisions rendered by the Planning Commission are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission and you want to appeal its action, you may do so in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is signed by the Planning Commission Chair and/or the Secretary of the Planning Commission, filed with the Secretary of the Planning Commission, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you. Moving right along, do we have any public comment?
I do not have any public comment via Zoom.
Seeing no public comment, we'll
I have no
move on
public
to.
comment
We have
either.
public.
Oh, you do?
No, there is no public comment over
Okay.
here.
Okay, before we go to the approval of the agenda, we have a resolution honoring Thomas Bruce, which would be item 8A. Tom has a time conflict and can't make it here till about 7 o'clock. So when he arrives, we'll leave the public meeting and go back to his resolution. Between public meeting items, and then reconvene the public meeting. So that's part of the approval for the agenda. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda with that?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Donchik, a second from Commissioner Savilicek. All those in favor of approving the agenda with the change of item 8A, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the meeting of June 1st, 2021 draft minutes.
Chair Chesney,
Commissioner Svilicek.
move to approve.
Chair Chesney, I second.
Commissioner Solacek makes the motion, Commissioner Doncheck seconds. All those in favor, any discussion on? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Abstain.
Because you're on Zoom, Mike, would you, when you make a comment, just identify yourself, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so that passes. Now we're going to move on to planning items. The first planning item we have is item 9A, amendment of conditions, case number WAC 21-003, Ladera Ranch. Secretary Lloyd, give us a little description, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an amendment of conditions. The case number WAC 21-0003 for Ladera Ranch for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve an amendment of conditions to tentative subdivision map, case number TM 05011, to accommodate a revision to the grading plans for the approved tentative map in order to allow flat lots where daylight basements were planned on 28 lots located off Dreamcatcher Drive in Ladera, in the Ladera development. Representing Washoe County in this matter is planner Julie Olander.
Before we get there, do we have any disclosures by commissioners, commissioners' ethics or ex parte? I do have a disclosure. I was contacted by the applicant's representative questioning why they could, they were advised that they would rather be, do their presentation by Zoom than in person, and I deferred them back to staff. Therefore, we will, what do we have, Julie Orlander?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm looking, and it seems like we may be having some Zoom issues. Is that not the case?
I see Julie.
Oh, okay. Roger just let me know he might be having problems, so if we have, can we get Julie in? That would be great.
Yep.
Good evening, Julie Olander, for the record, just getting my lighting situation. So the case before you, and I'll share my screen. So before you is WAC 21003 for Ladera Ranch. And the request is to amend the conditions for the tentative map TM 05011 to accommodate a revision up to the grading plans for the approved tentative map in order to allow flat lots where daylight basements were planned on 28 lots. Here's sort of a vicinity map showing where the development is. It's off of Golden Valley. And just to give you a little background on the tentative map, they did come before you all in November 2006 to amend the conditions to the related to the project sewer lines, pedestrian path, and grading. And then in 2007, only 105 lots have been recorded, and no homes have been constructed. And they came in with a development agreement, which was approved in 2015 to extend the tentative map until July 2017. And then again on February 7th, 2017, amendment was approved to reduce the side yard setbacks and to reduce the front yard setbacks for side turn garages. The application is now requesting revision from the original grading plan to eliminate the daylight basements on lots in favor of the flat lots. Approved tentative subdivision map included step foundations for daylight basements on approximately a third of the proposed lots, and 14 lots have been developed with daylight basements. The houses with daylight basements are typically larger, and the developer would like to develop smaller houses. They have found that the buyers and the market no longer prefer the larger homes, and they would like to provide the smaller homes. The developer will need to regrade the lots to the original grade. And here you can see how the lots have been graded to provide for the daylight basements. Here's another view. Staff is in support of this request to amend the grading plan to change the lots from daylight basements to flat lots. And they are not anticipating it to create any further impacts beyond what was evaluated with the original approved tentative map. Staff has reviewed the required findings that were made at the original subdivision approval and recommends that all 10 findings can still be made with this amendment. And they are in the staff report. Notice was sent to properties 500 feet from the site, and they were sent to 79 affected property owners. Various departments and agencies reviewed the application, and their comments are included in the staff report, and any conditions are in the amended conditions of approval. Here are the 10 tentative subdivision map findings, which I said earlier staff can make, and I provide a possible motion. I'm available for questions, and also the applicant is here for a presentation.
Thank you, Julie. Would the applicant like to make their presentation?
Sure, thank you, Chairman Chesney. John Krompottek with KLS Planning. I'm here on behalf of DR Horton and them as the applicant. I would like to, does staff have the PowerPoint, or am I going to run this?
We can run it for you, John, or
What I mean is, are you going to put it on the screen, or are you looking for me to? I'll run it.
I'll let you put it on the screen.
Okay. Do I need to share screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. Also, before we get started, is Max Haltom. He was invited. He is with DR Horton, the Vice President of Operations. Is he in the Zoom meeting? I would like to have him here as the actual owner's representative, if possible. I don't see him on the Zoom meeting.
I can promote him. One moment.
Okay, thank you. I don't know who's speaking. Appreciate that. Also, Robert Jalou is with us with Summit Engineering. But if you can bring in, I see Robert's name. Okay, great. I hope we're coming to the end of the Zoom era. Hi, Max.
I'm just figuring out how it works. Thank you,
Yeah.
Commissioner, for having us.
Thank you all for having us. I'm going to go quickly through this, and then I'll turn it over to the commissioners for questions. As noted by staff and by Julie in her intro, there's a request to amend conditions from the previously approved tentative subdivision map for Ladera Ranch. Specifically, there are 28 lots remaining that will change from daylight, i.e. walkout basements, to single level foundations. There were 105 lots in this phase. It's called phase one of a larger project that will be built by somebody else. 77 of them are constructed, 28 lots remaining. And again, by way of introduction, the team for this presentation is DR Horton. Max Haltom is with us, civil engineer, Summit Engineering, Robert Jalou as the lead engineer, and myself with KLS Planning. Here's kind of the slide that sums it all up. It's always nice to have a visual that goes with words, right? 105 lots in total. There's the shape of the project. 63 lots have been constructed with single level foundations. There are 42 approved with daylight basements. 14 of those have been approved, and the balance are the 28 that are shaded on this map. So that's really the subject of this special use permit. And again, the idea here is to change from the daylight basements to single level foundations on those 28 shaded lots. I'm sorry, my There we go. For some reason, this thing's not clicking very well. See the lots on this image, 73 through 81. Here's a different perspective. Sort of south end of the face. You can see what's going on there. It's a very odd, and a picture is worth a lot of words here. The idea at the time was daylight basement product. And here's those lots in bulk and a better visual. And you can see that's not really hillside adaptive. We created a cliff and then we're building a house over it and calling it daylight basement product. So here's kind of an engineering depiction of this that explains it in a different way in section, which is easier on the eyes to explain what we're doing. The previously approved concept was daylight basement grading. And you can see that same kind of ledge that's created, a house that spans over it, then does 1 story down and 2 stories up. The idea from the back would be looking from the rear, right, would be 3 stories. We're not getting into story level detail here. That's what that would be, and you'll see it in an actual photo in just a few minutes. So you can see we have the carving out, the house fitting over that carve out, and then an expanded lot area. And we go to the 6-foot neighbor fence and then common open space beyond that. Here's the proposed condition. So that would be a 2-story house in the same area without the drop down, the daylight. And we have a grade break for the yard area and then more of a slant toward the houses, toward the rear property line fence. And then the common open space would be dealt with the same after you go into that area. But you can see the idea here is proposed grade is a little bit different than that carve out that we have in the current condition. And here is what it actually looks like in a picture. And you know what I say in summary here, the current product issues. It's intensely bulky if you look at it from this point of view. It's 3 stories. And then the next bullet point says, we're not really hillside adaptive. Nothing is changing in the environment with regard to grading. This is really about what product that D.R. Horton wants to build there that makes more sense for them economically and makes more sense for them in the marketplace. And as I say in the third bullet point, no benefit to reducing visual grading impacts. Sometimes hillside adaptive, we love to drop that term around in this profession. And you say it's hillside adaptive, but is it really? It's just grading. Grading one way versus another way in what we're proposing. So what staff wouldn't know, because I've spent a lot of time with D.R. Horton, is that's germane to their request, is you're always trying to find a product that meets well with the neighborhood and the marketplace and pricing. And we have a terrible geotechnical condition out there. And with this extra excavation that's created by the hillside, the drop down, the daylight, it's adding a lot of cost to the product, a lot of cost to the excavation, and a lot of cost to the home buyer. So we're going to resolve all of that with this more straightforward grading and a traditional 1-story or 2-story house. I think it's important to note that if this was a community issue, we probably would have heard from some of the community members. And as Julie pointed out, 79 people within 500 feet of the project were noticed. No responses. So it appears to be neutral in the community. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to the chairman of the commission. Thank you all.
Okay. That's the end of your presentation?
Yes, it is. If you
Okay,
have any
great. Thank you.
questions, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to bring it back to the commission. Are there any questions of the applicant or of staff?
Chair Chesney?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know if this is for staff or if it's for John or the developer. Julie, you said, I believe I heard you say in your statement that, that some of the grading that's already been done for the daylight basements needs to be graded back to single story without the daylight basement, or is that correct?
Julie Olander, Planning and Building for the record. Yes, like I showed in my slides, there are areas where it's been graded already in anticipation for the daylight basements. And then so in those areas, and that's primarily what this condition is asking, is that they can go back to the original slope that was there previously to remove that daylight basement grading and make it a semi-flat lot. I mean, there's hillside there, so it's not going to be
Right.
flat, but they won't have the daylight basement.
Okay, so then this might be for you or the engineer for the applicant. So when you're putting back, for lack of a better descriptor, putting back grading, what does that do to the reference to the geotechnical issues regarding that soil there?
Engineering, the civil engineer. It eliminates a wall, a retaining wall that would go down to the daylight basement, and it improves. It takes out a risk, so it improves the structure.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I will ask if there's any public comment.
I have no public comment.
I do not have any public.
Seeing there's no public comment, I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission for any discussion. Do we have any discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion.
Chair Chesney,
Commissioner Doncheck.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report, the information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve amendment of conditions case number WAC 21-0003 for D.R. Horton with the, amended conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 10 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.608.25.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Doncheck, a second by Commissioner Nelson. Is there any? What? Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Thank you very much, you all. Moving right along.
Thank you.
We'll go to item 9B, Master Plan Amendment Case WMPA 21-002, Village Green. Secretary Lloyd.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is for hearing, discussion, and possible action to amend the Washoe County Master Plan, Spanish Springs Area Plan, Appendix D, Village Green Commerce Center Specific Plan, and if approved, to authorize the chair to sign a resolution to this effect. Any approval would be subject to further approval of the Washoe County Board of County Commissioners and a finding of conformance with the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan by the regional planning authorities. If approved, the amendment would add clarifying language as referenced in your agenda and in staff report for items 1 through 12. With that, representing Washoe County, again, is Planner Julie Olander.
Okay, do we have any disclosures by commissioners, ethics or ex parte? Hearing none, we'll hear the staff presentation.
Good evening, Julie Olander with Planning and Building. I'm going to share my screen.
There you go.
So this is a master plan amendment for the Village Green Commerce Center and specific plan. The applicant is requesting the change to the plan to accommodate some of the changes that they have wanted to make. And then just to let you know, the Village Green Commerce Plan is Appendix D of the Spanish Springs Area Plan. And also the request is primarily for one parcel, APN 534-561-10. The applicant is requesting numerous changes and clarifications of the plan, primarily for the one parcel. And one things they're trying to do, they want to remove any reference to the Spanish Springs Area Plan Appendix A, including building coverage. They want to clarify language concerning heights and setbacks. And then under the architectural section of the plan, they're changing the wording industrial theme to architectural and design. And then they're adding the word color, evergreen trees, and those are options for any 50-foot length of building wall. They're also asking for exemptions from portions of the architectural requirements for general guidelines, energy efficiency, tenant criteria, building massing and form, mechanical equipment, and building materials, the landscaping requirement for site grading, and sustainability requirements for low impact development standards and environmental sustainability standards. We're also clarifying the eliminated signage language that will not allow it adjacent to residential property. And they're asking for clarification for loading docks will not be allowed adjacent to residential property. However, other doors and property parking will. And then they're also asking for an exemption from the low impact development standards and environmental sustainability standards. Planning staff is also taking the opportunity to, has taken the opportunity to review the plan, and they're asking to change a few things, which is they're changing goal 2, just the wording create commerce. They're also removing goal 5, which address some of the flood control basin concerns in the area, because that has been already accomplished. And then they're also stating language under affluent water section when available. At this time, affluent water is not available in this area. Under the Caleta Plata landscape, streetscape section, we're asking to have aeroscape instead of no turf, and including rock. And then we're asking to remove figure D5, which is the business park buffering. That's addressing the public trail, the equestrian trail easement, and that's being changed. And so we're just removing the map totally. We're also providing updated language concerning the transportation improvements for Washoe County Engineering and Capital Projects. And then we're renaming the equestrian easement to public trail easement. And as I said, relocating it to the western boundary of the parcel 534-561-110. I know this is a lot. It's a lot of small details, but I wanted to sort of run through those as best I could. Village Green specific plan has been before you before. And just to remind you, there has been some changes made on it previously, but it was developed to allow industrial uses adjacent to residential properties. There are 4 parcels in the plan. 2 are master plan and zone open space, and then the other 2 are master plan and zone industrial. The 2 parcels that are master plan and zone open space are owned by Washoe County and are used as a sediment basin. And as I said, well, I didn't say this, excuse me, the applicant did try to contact the other parcel that got industrial and zoning on it. However, he did not respond. And here's sort of a layout of the parcels. So you can see the primary one that's got the red square around it. That's the one we're making the changes to. The other one that's industrial, as I said, the property owner did not reply to the applicant's phone calls and emails. The specific plan was originally adopted, like I said, for that unique Zell-out industrial projects in that area. However, the plan was developed for a specific plan at the time, developer at the time, and he did not move forward. They did not move forward with that development. So now the applicant is making changes to the plan so that it would work for their needs and create a more, what they feel, a more flexible plan. Because I said the plan will basically modify it to be more current with current industrial development standards. And as I sort of ran through, some of the changes are very minor. So the main changes are removing the one parcel, and I apologize, I dropped the last two digits from the Spanish Springs Area Plan Appendix A to allow parking areas and driveways facing a residential parcels. However, no loading docks, to clarify the building height, signage, and lighting requirements, and then also to update the transportation improvement section for Calle de la Plata. And also the equestrian easement, like I said, has been renamed to public trail easement, and the alignment has been moved. So here's the alignment that is being proposed now. The dark red line going across the one parcel. However, if the other smaller industrial parcel does come into the plan, then we would move it over to where the dashed line is. And that's basically because of the development to the north. Washington County Parks has, well, the development to the north is Blackstone, and there is a trail easement up through that and to Sugarloaf. So we were asked to sort of line it up at this time. And as the development occurs out there, we will then look at having to install flashing lights if need be, or whatever, to accommodate that trail. And then it also links up with Bridle Path, the development to the south, where they have some common open space, and then right along where the houses are to the south, is my little point, right in here, they have a trail easement. So even though there's residential houses here, there is a trail easement along the back of these properties. This is common open space for Bridle Path, and over here is common open space. And this is the map we are removing because it is no longer current and doesn't really reflect what we're proposing with this update. There has been some changes to the transportation improvement section since I put this plan together, and engineering staff is here to address these changes. So this is the language that will now go into the specific plan instead of the language that's in your staff report. And I'm not, if you have specific questions about this, I'm gonna let engineering address this. They have a better understanding of it and probably can explain it better than I can. So here is the area that was noticed. The property was noticed 750 feet from the site, and then legal notice was published in the Gazette on July 25th. There was a neighborhood meeting held by Zoom on June 16th that the applicant held. And there were a group of attendees, and there was one comment that they were good with these changes, and they felt that industrial was better than residential. They did have questions about lighting, flooding, and building that the applicant responded to, and then also about the location of the path, and then the path connecting to the properties to the south and to the properties in north. The applicant was reviewed by various departments and no agencies as shown in the staff report. There were no recommendations for denial. And staff does believe we can make the findings, the 5 findings, and also the Spanish Springs area finding. Oops. And I do have a possible motion, and I'm available for questions, and also the applicant is available. Oh, they have a presentation and they're also available for questions. And I'll stop sharing so the applicant can share their presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Julie. I'm going to hold off questions. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Yes, hello. record. I thank you for having us tonight on the agenda. Julie did a really nice job outlining the project, the master plan amendment, text amendment that we've proposed. But I'll go ahead and add a little context for your consideration. So this evening, we're really specifically talking about changes to the Village Green Commerce Specific Plan related to APN 534-56110. So this is just about 39 acres of vacant land at 375 Calle de la Plata. And warehouse and distribution is currently an allowed use. It's already been identified in the industrial designations in that specific plan. So really, what the developer who's here tonight that I'm representing, which is SJS Commercial Real Estate Group, they're looking to build something that's already allowed for and envisioned in the plan. However, this is a clarification and cleanup to the specific plan that wasn't fully envisioned in the last time it came before this board. So that is why we're here. Our changes are specific to Appendix D, which some parts of it referenced Appendix A of the Spanish Springs Area Plan. And so that is where the inconsistencies were needed to be addressed in this text amendment that weren't fully addressed last time around. Again, here's the overview. Julie did a nice job showing us. Parcel 10 is the easternmost parcel. One of the big inconsistencies was that in Appendix A, there's a 30% building coverage limitation. And we just are, in order to make a modern industrial project, are looking to be consistent with the Washoe County Development Code standards. And actually a lot of the changes, things like the sustainability and some of the other points that were mentioned, the reason they're being taken out of this plan is because Washoe County has done improvements to the development code for industrial zoning specifically. And so we're just going to be complying with those code requirements as opposed to this specific plan. Also, being mindful of the neighbors is really important. Clarification around door placement. So allowing for entrance doors and fire access doors and front door entrances are valuable and important to any sort of development. However, we are limiting or eliminating any possibility of truck dock doors with residential adjacency. There's a clarification here to make sure landscaping reflects what was in a previously approved clarification letter by the county and before you in 2019, that this parcel 10 is only required to have 15% landscaping requirement overall. And right now the code says 20%. One of the comments that came out of this process leading up to this meeting is that there is a revision of the equestrian trail. In fact, it will still be a trail along the southern border. It's the request of Parks and Rec to rename it a public use trail, which we agree is a more inclusive use. And as Julie mentioned, putting it on the western boundary was the request of county staff so that there would be better connection from the Southern Homeowners Association to Blackstone, which is a public access easement to the north. So really looking at alignment for actual benefits of use. So adding clarification language is our last point, just throughout the document. You saw the striked up copy in Julie's staff report. So with just a few points of context, we are supporting the findings and the information provided in the staff report. We went through a public process that involved a noticing of 750 feet of neighbors. We had decent turnout. I believe there were 4 or 5 neighbors in attendance. The developer also met on site with a neighbor to the east to discuss connection and the new project. And so we feel like through this process, we have listened and we really want to be responsive and good, sustainable developers for this neighborhood. Just looking at the edits to the plan, you'll see they seem comprehensive, but just a few changes that are not included in the staff report is a few minor typos that I've included here that should be addressed, and also the content revisions regarding particularly the transportation section. And I do want to refer to Jen, who is Heron, who is here from engineering to speak on this matter, because some back and forth has gone today, and I think a workable content has been provided. So I want to make sure that the changes that would be approved by this board are in fact included in the record in that way. But again, we feel like we've worked with staff and we have a large team here tonight. So I think between Mark Siegel, who is the developer, he is available for questions. I am available for planning questions. We also have Mike Rayleigh joining us, who is the planner who brought this specific plan changes before you in 2019 to speak to the history, and Garrett Gordon, who is the project land use attorney. With that, I feel like we support findings in the staff report, available for questions, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to bring it back to the commission. Do we have any questions of
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, before we go there, I do believe that Jennifer Haran has an update she wants to provide. I don't know if she's on Zoom right now, but
I am on Zoom. I hope it's working. Yes, thank you. Jennifer Huron from engineering. There has been some back and forth throughout the day today. Our division director, Dwayne, is out of town. So the intent with this project was to provide some continuity with our pedestrian safety and driver safety, as well as protecting our roadway asset. So the current road there is not built for industrial truck traffic. So we would require that the Calle de la Plata from the eastern project boundary to the intersection with Pyramid Highway is improved to support industrial truck traffic. And that's part of one of our conditions with updating the transportation traffic plan. As part of that, we would generally condition that, or what we'd like to condition is that concrete curb gutter and sidewalk is provided along Calle de la Plata with those roadway improvements from the eastern project boundary all the way to the intersection. In discussions with the developer, and Mark, I know I talked with you about this today, we had gone back and forth about if we would require sidewalks on both sides, if we would require curb gutter on both sides. And when I've talked to Dwayne just during this meeting, actually on the phone with him, he really would like to impress the importance of our long-term durability of this project, of our roadway, of the improvements that would come to there. We want to make sure that would be providing good assets for our community, for our county. So that's something that he talked about, which would be modifying our conditions even again from what Julie just presented tonight back to kind of our initial conditions. So to the effect of the Village Green Commerce Center will be required to improve Calle de la Plata to a commercial collector roadway standard from the easterly project boundary to the intersection of Pyramid Highway. These improvements will include items such as pavement widening and overlay to meet minimum pavement structural section for truck traffic, curb gutter and sidewalk along both the north and south side of Calle de la Plata from the eastern project boundary to Pyramid Highway intersection, and intersection improvements to the satisfaction of the county engineer. Trevor, Julie, I'm looking to you to talk about the discussion now. This is what Dwayne would like me to discuss tonight. This is contrary to what I talked with the developer about earlier today in meetings with planning and engineering. We thought we were going to lessen our requirements a little bit. This is something that I just wanted to bring to you. It's my first time coming to the Planning Commission, so I appreciate your patience.
Okay, before I go to public comment, are there any questions of the applicant or staff? Hearing none.
Chair Chesney.
Oh, wait. Hold on. There are. May I speak? Mark Siegel, SGS Commercial Real Estate, the developer.
Oh, you're with the developer?
Yes.
Okay.
May I speak, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank staff, and in particular Julie and Jen, and the others who have worked on this. We totally understand, respect, and appreciate specifically as the Calle de la Plata, the collective responsibility to ensure proper infrastructure is in place. As Jen did say, that we've been discussing this throughout the day with various staff members, and Jen and I recently, just a couple hours ago. So, and as I believe she just mentioned, and Jen, to the extent that I'm misspeaking here, please, I apologize and correct me, but we're sort of going, back and forth here between various requirements, specifically regarding curb gutter and sidewalk on both sides and from our development all the way to Pyramid Highway. We're concerned, well, obviously this is a significant cost, but also in terms of the nexus and the proportionality, and particularly the sidewalk, where it's something that we're troubled with. So this is, and it's something which, and Jen, if I'm wrong, please correct me, that is now back to where it was, whereas up until a couple hours ago we had modified, and I think was something that we could live with, but this is now something that we do find problematic. We also have with us Mike Rayleigh, who was involved originally with this. I want to stress the fact, as Julie has pointed out, as well as Carrie, that this is a clarification and cleanup. That we're not asking for anything new here, other than clarifying and cleaning up, and candidly trying to do things which are, we think, better for the neighbors. In terms of dock doors, lighting, signage, etc. So this last bit with the curb, gutter, and sidewalk, we do find problematic. And I'd like to, if possible, be able to join in Garrett Gordon and have him speak to this as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner and Chairman and all commissioners, I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Commissioner Svilacek, you had a question. I got a couple.
I just need some guidance from staff and council because this, the conditions have changed significantly. So,
I appreciate you all bearing with this last-minute development, I want to call it that. I don't know that they necessarily have changed. I think there's been some discussion back and forth, and now engineering staff is back to where we originally were at the beginning of the night, as the language was currently written. That's basically the development that's happened at this time. And as you heard, the applicant is expressing some frustration with that newest development. So it will be up to the Planning Commission to determine if it's an appropriate request to have the developer make those improvements all the way to Pyramid Highway on both sides of Calle de la Plata, not just one. Does that help at all?
no.
Okay.
So what I heard the engineer say is that, when I looked at the original conditions, are we going back to the original conditions that were placed on this property when this project was approved some time ago with curb and gutter and street, Calle de la Plata being raised up to handle industrial traffic with truck traffic?
What we're,
This is Julie Olander with,
sorry, Julie, let me just quickly.
okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, what you have with the original language, the existing language as it exists in the master plan right now, is a little less stringent, right, in terms of when those improvements need to be made or if they need to be made at all. What engineering is coming forward with now is a requirement, a change to the language of the specific plan requiring all of these improvements to upgrade that to accommodate industrial development, industrial trucks and that.
And sidewalk and gutter.
Correct.
On both sides.
Yes.
So then my question then would be extended to council. Is this enough of a change that this needs to be continued? Because feels like there's a notification issue. It's kind of taken us aback. Trevor, go ahead. I think he's.
No, it will not be a notification. In fact, what engineering is requesting is they go back to the language as it is prepared in your packet right now. So I
That's
don't,
the question I asked. So is it on our packet this evening or requiring it to go back to this project's been in front of us a number of times.
Yes.
So that's the clarification I'm seeking.
that
And
that
I'm
is,
quickly trying to find conditions.
you won't find it as a condition like you find in a tentative map, for example. It's written into the new language of the specific plan. So
So
that should
this
be,
is Jen here. What was in your
Hey,
packet
would you
is,
please identify yourself when you speak up?
She did.
this is Jennifer Hearing with engineering.
Okay.
What Julie proposed tonight is a change from what I believe was provided in your packet. What I have identified tonight in discussion is what was in your packet.
It's on page D-15. in
Mr.
Exhibit
Chairman?
A, under transportation improvements.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Wait a minute. We have, this is to the commission right now to ask questions of staff or the applicant. So everybody quit interrupting and let the commission ask the questions and make their comments before I go to public comment. This is not a debate. Is that understood? Okay, do any of the other commissioners have any questions of staff or the applicant? I do have some questions. For whoever, is Lot 08 landlocked, or is there an easement for that, the owner of that property to gain access to their property? Secondly, this goes to engineering. There is no way in the world that I am going to support having, and I don't have a dog in this hunt, but I'm telling you, it is absolutely ludicrous to ask this applicant to put curb, gutter, and sidewalk on the north side of Calle de la Pla. And that's enriching other people's property that they have no control over. So I don't know where these discussions came from at the last minute or how they ended up here, but I'm not a happy camper with what's going on here right now. Those are my comments. Is there any more comments or questions from?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Pat.
I had questions about the discussions with the easement. Will the people who now use that equestrian easement be able to have access to the so-called public area now? This is a question to, I guess, to.
This is Julie Olander. This is Julie Olander with Planning and Building, yes. So that if you're in that bridle path area, this will give you that path to the Blackstone development and then on up through Sugarloaf. So yes.
Satisfied?
Chair Chesney?
Okay. There's no further questions
No,
from?
Chair,
Oh,
if I could
Commissioner
add on to that then, Julie, is it a mixed access, so it still is equestrian as well as foot?
Julie Olander with Washoe County Building, yes, it's just public, so it's not, we're not naming it equestrian, so people don't think it's just for horses. It's for any kind of use except for non-vehicles, non-motorized vehicles could use this public easement.
Thank you.
Okay, I still haven't heard an answer on parcel 08. Is it landlocked or does it have an access easement through some of these properties?
That parcel has access, independent of parcel 10.
Carrie, can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, Carrie Rohrmeyer. Yeah, the response is that parcel 08 does have its own access.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, if there's no further questions or comments from the commission, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
I have no public comment in chambers.
Commissioner, I do not have any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Hearing no public no request for public comment.
did.
I apologize.
Oh,
Chair member, this email was sent out to all commissioners and posted to the county website earlier this afternoon, but it was printed out here for you in case you didn't have the opportunity to review it online.
do we need to read this into the record?
That's not required.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you.
Oh, I apologize. I have Garrett Gordon, who I do believe is with the project.
Okay. Go, Derek.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Hi, for the record, Garrett Gordon on behalf of the applicant. I'll be very quick. I agree with you. This has gotten a little confusing. You have a condition from staff. You have a modified condition from Ms. Olander. You have our proposed condition. There's been discussions, as I understand, between the developer and staff. I would suggest on behalf of the applicant, possibly a continuance. We can take your input. We heard you mention a few minutes ago on the curb and gutter, and maybe any other input from the commissioners, and maybe come back with a nice, clean amendment or condition. So it's crystal clear to everyone where we're headed, would be my suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Okay. Are there any further questions from any of the commissioners of the applicant or staff?
Chair Chesney. I would feel more comfortable with a continuance so I can see spelled out specifically, because right now I'm scrambling trying to find the specific language from original to what Julie was in her report and what Dwayne is suggesting. So I would most definitely be in favor of a continuance.
So that was going to be my next question.
Okay.
When it comes to a motion, we have a motion to accept this, but these last minute changes, and I can't support it the way it sits, and I think that it would be best if we continued this, got all our Ts crossed and our Is dotted, and walk forward with our eyes wide open.
So if you would, I would
So I
move to
entertain a
continue.
motion.
Move to continue this item.
Chair Chesney, I second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Savilicek and a second from Commissioner Doncheck. Is there any discussion on a motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this will be continued to next month?
If you could, please continue at time certain. So yes.
I will
continue at-
amend my motion to continue to the next scheduled Planning Commission meeting.
I will second that amended motion.
Second that second? Okay, all right. That's the motion. Thank you, everybody. That was a most confusing conversation.
Yes, it was.
Okay, we're going to move on to item, excuse me. Our guest of honor is here, so I am going to close the public hearing and move to item, get my notes here, to item 8A, resolution recognizing Commissioner Thomas Bruce for his outstanding duty to the community as a planning commissioner for the past 4 years. And Secretary Lloyd, would you do the honor of, and Commissioner Bruce, please stand up, defend yourself.
Come on up.
Come on down.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And while Commissioner Bruce is walking forward, I'll go ahead and read the resolution. It's a resolution of the Washoe County Planning Commission expressing appreciation to Thomas Bruce for his service to Washoe County, whereas Commissioner Bruce has, since his appointment by the Washoe County Commission as the Planning Commission District 4 representative on July 1st, 2017, been an active and enthusiastic member of the Washoe County Planning Commission, serving the county with dedication and distinction. Whereas Commissioner Bruce demonstrated professionalism at all time and always treated staff, applicants, and the public with dignity and respect. Whereas Commissioner Bruce volunteered his time and talents to serve as an alternate on the Regional Planning Commission. Whereas Commissioner Bruce had a firm understanding of county procedures and ensured strict adherence to the rules, policies, and procedures by staff and the Planning Commission Chair. Whereas Commissioner Bruce was always reliable, polite, courteous, and appreciative of staff and his fellow commissioners. Now therefore be it resolved that the Washoe County Planning Commission does hereby express their deep appreciation to Thomas for his extraordinary concern and devotion to the improvement of the community's well-being through the development, implementation, and administration of quality planning in Washoe County, and be it further resolved that the Washoe County Planning Commission will miss the contributions of Thomas Bruce and extend their best wishes for a happy and prosperous future. Adopted this July 6, 2021.
Thank you. So, Thomas, you got anything to say for yourself?
Well,
Because we're going to roast you here in a minute.
okay, that's fine. I very, very much appreciate the consideration of this. I did not expect it. I did serve. I agreed that I would serve. I apologize for last month's meeting, and just so you know, it's only gonna cost about 5 Benjamins to fix that computer. And it was at the last minute, so I do appreciate your consideration. I have enjoyed working with all of you who are here. I have not worked personally with the last 2 appointees, but I have enjoyed it and I appreciate it, and I wish you all the very best and your efforts.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to go down the dais here, and we'll start with Commissioner Savilicek, and this is your last shot at the good old Tom.
I'm not going to do anything like that. I just want to thank you for the time we served on the Planning Commission together, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness and your dedication to respecting community input and public input. So thank you so much, Tom.
Commissioner Donchek.
I second what Commissioner Vilcek said, in that you were always here to the best for the community. It wasn't this particular item. You were looking at the community as a whole whenever you were making decisions. You tried to make the best decisions for this county, and we thank you for that.
Thank you. Gonna go to Commissioner Nelson.
I always appreciated your look, how you looked at things, and the questions that you came up with. So it all made us all think, I think, outside the box a little bit better. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Phillips.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm the new one, so I don't know very much about what happened before, but I want to thank you for everything that I've heard that has been good about you.
Oh, boy.
Well, it's only good, so relax.
No, dear, I'm waiting for the salvo.
Commissioner Payton, would you like to say anything from outer space? Hearing nothing from Commissioner Payton, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your participation, living out in the hinterland. You've braved through tremendous winter storms and your little sports car, and at the threat of loss of life and limb, and you've always kind of kept us on an even keel, and I appreciate every minute of the time that you spent with us. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you all again. And as I said, enjoy and best of luck.
I'm sorry, Mr. Commissioner Bruce, before you take off, is it possible we can get all the commissioners
yeah.
down to take a picture? And all right, thank you.
Can we get a picture with you?
Right up here. So if you want to come around here, we'll come up front.
Follow Trevor.
Oh, that's it. Follow the leader.
I'm going to miss something out.
Do you want us in front of the dais or just
Okay,
the other-
called order. I'm going to reopen the public hearing. We have item 9C, tentative case map WTM 21-009 Cold Springs for possible hearing and discussion. Secretary Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a tentative subdivision map to allow the subdivision of a 14.05 acres into 42-lot common open space single-family residential development with lots ranging in size from 7,219 square feet to 19,740 square feet located at 18030 Cold Springs Drive. Representing Washoe County, once again, is planner Julie Olander.
Do we have any disclosures by any of the commissioners? Hearing none. Carry on.
Good evening again, Julie Olander with Planning and Building. I'm going to share my screen. So this is a tentative map for Cold Springs Drive. They're asking to create a 42-lot common open space tentative subdivision map on 2 parcels totaling 14 acres. And here's a map showing where the 2 parcels are. You might remember this way back from last year on January 28th. This was approved by the Board of County Commissioners for a zone change from low-density suburban to medium-density suburban. So these parcels have been before you before. The parcels are located with the Cold Springs area plan and are within the Cold Springs suburban character management area. And that requires that development of more than 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres must be located within the Cold Springs suburban character management area, which these parcels are. So you can see that the master plan and regulatory zone on these 2 maps. To the left, you have the master plan, which is suburban residential. And then on the right, you have these 2 parcels are medium density suburban, as are the parcels to the north. And then the parcels surrounding them are low density suburban. The request is for common open space development per Article 408, which allows density transfer subdivision in order to preserve or provide open space, protect natural or scenic resources, achieve a more effective use of land, minimize road building, and encourage a sense of community. The applicant is proposing to vary the lot sizes, and they're going to range from 7,000 plus square feet to 13,000 plus square feet, with an average of about 9,600 square feet. The proposed development will meet MDS regulatory zone setbacks of 20 feet in the front and rear and 8 feet on the sides. And the overall density will be about almost 3 acres, 3 units per acre. The 9.2 acres for total out of the 14 acres will be for lots, about 1.6 acres for common public right-of-way, and then 3 acres for common areas. The 3 acres, or 22% of the site, will include trails and a neighborhood park with playground, recreational equipment, picnic tables, and benches. And then there'll be a red tension pond. I'm going to show you a map in just a minute, which will be landscaped with trees, shrubs, benches, and a path around the pond with exercise workout stations. There will be a DG pathway that will connect the eastern portion of the development to the western portion of the development through the neighborhood park and the retention pond, with the path continuing along the rear of the western properties to the landscape sidewalk on Cold Springs. This public pathway will connect the 2 portions of the development, and all common areas will be, and equipment will be maintained by the HOA. I should have put this map a little earlier, I apologize. So you can see that there's this neighborhood park here. And so these people here can walk through this path, get here, and then come out along this path here around the pond, and then along this border here, and then it connects with the sidewalk along here. Staff has concluded that the applicant meets the proposed purpose of Article 408 by providing open space, achieving a more efficient use of land, and encouraging a sense of community. The proposed paths, park, and retention area will provide open space and common area, and will provide areas to gather, walk the neighborhood, and enjoy the surrounding area. The development, like I said, is going to meet Washoe County's for requirements for medium density suburban. There will be a 6-foot solid privacy fence constructed along the eastern property line to provide separation from the existing homes, and it shouldn't impact the views. And then the retention pond that's on the property will be constructed to retain up to almost 61,000 cubic feet for all runoff from the development. And here again is another site plan, so showing that retention pond over here. The site is essentially flat with native vegetation. There was a shed on the eastern parcel with a well and septic and driveway, however, that's been removed, and the septic is no longer functioning. Sewer service will be provided by Washoe County and water service by Great Basin Water Company, and all the other utilities are pretty much in place out there, gas, solid waste, power. The applicant indicates that the streets within the development will meet Washoe County standards and will be dedicated to Washoe County. The development will be accessed from Cold Springs Drive and will generate about 400 average daily trips and 42 weekly peak hour trips. And a traffic study is not required because the requirement is less than 80 weekday peak trips. And that's what the code requires. If it's over 80, then they would have to do a traffic study. The schools it's zoned for is Gomes Elementary, Cold Springs Middle School, and North Valleys currently. And you can see that right now, the elementary school is going to be over capacity. And then also, and as time goes out, it's also the same way. And the high school is pretty much the same way. However, the school district will be opening Inskeep Elementary School in 2021, and that will relieve the overcrowding at the elementary level. And the school is also anticipating construction of a brand new high school in the Cold Springs area, somewhere in the timeframe of 2027 to 29, and that will relieve enrollments at North Valleys High School. The school district is also looking at rezoning that will affect North Valleys High School and possibly will relieve North Valleys by 2022 and 2023. Notices were sent to properties within 500 feet of the site, and it was sent to 77 affected property owners. Various departments and agencies reviewed the application, and their comments are included in the staff report, and the conditions are in the conditions of approval. Staff was able to make the 10 required findings for a tentative subdivision map, and I provide a possible motion. And the applicant is also here and available. I'm available for questions, and he's available for a presentation, I believe, and for questions.
Thank you, Julie. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Mike Rayleigh with Christie Corporation, here representing Lifestyle Homes. I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Uh-huh.
Great. I just have a brief presentation. I think Julie did a very good run through of the project, and I will be brief. Some of these slides may be repetitive. This is just an overview of what's being proposed, which I think Julie's covered, as well as location. These are some pictures of the existing site, just to kind of give you a reference of the existing conditions and topography. As Julie mentioned, relatively flat, very well suited for the type of development that's being proposed. A couple other things I'd like to point out on the site plan. This park and these recreation facilities, although private and maintained by the homeowners association, are actually open to the general public. So the trail connection will actually provide linkages all the way through the project site to areas beyond So, if the kids that obviously that live in the neighborhood over here or joining would have access to these facilities as well. So it's not just a benefit to this project, but to the community as a whole. So I think that's a nice benefit for the residents out there. And if you look at our proposed lot sizes, they're almost directly complementary to what's adjoining the site just there to the north. Julie kind of went over the stats. As she mentioned, we're at 2.99 units per acre, well within the allowed MDS zoning. The lot size is proposed, like I say, nearly identical to what's the adjoining subdivision, with an overall just over 3 acres of common area, including the park and the trails. Just a few things to consider, I think. As I mentioned, highly amenitized. It really does promote that sense of community. Another benefit, Cold Springs Drive frontage will include some nice new streetscape landscaping that will really enhance the appearance as you come down Cold Springs Drive from what exists today. Once again, the homeowners association will maintain all those park improvements, so no cost to the taxpayers. Traffic is very, very kind of minimal, less than half of what would trigger a full-blown traffic study per county code. We do fully comply with MDS. I think it's, as I mentioned before, another benefit is perpetuating that pedestrian access through our project to points beyond. We are consistent with all the goals and policies of the area plan. We're not asking for any deviations or variations or anything like that. Really kind of follows straight code with the common open space standards. We are in agreement with all the conditions as outlined in the staff report. And myself, Bob and Peter Listener, and Clint with Summit Engineering are all on the call here. If you have any specific questions, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, do we have any, before I open this up to public comment, do we have any questions from the commission of staff or the applicant? Hearing none, I will open it up for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Commissioner Chesney, I do not have any hands raised on Zoom.
I have no public comment in chambers.
Hearing no public comment, I'll bring it back.
Okay.
Do you need to fill, okay, come up and make the public comment. State your name, address, and afterwards you'll need to fill out a comment sheet with the recording secretary.
Hello, everyone. My name is Felix Rojas. I live at 18371 Glen Lakes Court. My home is adjoining this area. I was concerned about the pond. I don't know if it's a water runoff area. Is there going to be standing water in that area? And I was also concerned about the sewage. Is the sewage going to be running out towards Cold Springs, or is it going to be running towards the Glen Lakes community, which would be our street? So that was the concern that I had, the sewage and the open pond that's going to be in back of my home.
Okay, thank you.
Do I go over for an application?
Yeah, you fill out a form for her, please. Thank you. Is there any other public comment out there in the audience? Everybody's all quiet. Okay. Seeing no further public comment. Do we have any discussion based on the public comment? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion. Do we have a motion on this? Let's not all speak up at once.
Chair Chesney.
Commissioner Doncheck.
I move, excuse my allergies. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approved tentative subdivision map, case number WTM 21-009 for Lifestyle Homes TND LLC, being able to make all 10 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.608.25.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Doncheck. Do we have a second?
Chair Chesney? I'll
Commissioner
second.
Spilczyk.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimously. Thank you.
Chair Chesney, can you confirm that our two commissioners that are remote are still with us?
Yes, because we're not hearing anything.
I do see them both on the call. I will ask them to unmute just
Yeah,
to
so just not
confirm.
responding to
Yeah.
motions, so.
Are you guys awake out there?
We're awake.
Awake and alive.
Yes. I concur with the motion.
Are you in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Larry Payton, are you out there?
Aye.
Okay. All right, it's unanimous. Guys, stay awake out there.
We're awake.
Keeping an eye on you.
Can't even see them.
This thing mutes itself.
Okay. We're going to move on to item 9D. That would be tentative map case number WTM 21-006, Silver Hills. Secretary Lloyd, would you like to enlighten us about
Thank you.
the scope of this project?
All right, for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a tentative subdivision map to allow a 358-lot, single-family residential common open space subdivision with lots ranging in size from 5,000 square feet to 8,072 square feet. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Senior Planner Roger Pelham.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Roger Pelham with Washoe County Planning. I am going to attempt to share my screen.
Chair Chesney, I believe one of the commissioners has a disclosure.
Oh, excuse me, do we have any disclosures by any of the commissioners, ethics or ex parte?
Yes, we do, Chair Chesney. I am a resident of Silver Knolls. I live in Silver Knolls. And I spoke with council earlier today in terms of the summary judgment against the Silver Knolls Community Organization, which was brought by Lifestyle Homes. I have not been involved with the Silver Knolls Community Organization through anything in terms of their deliberation or their activity or anything associated with Silver Hills, other than I am a resident of Silver Knolls.
And Commissioner Savilicek, let me just ask you a couple basic questions. Do you have any reason to believe that no matter whether this application is granted or it's denied, do you expect that any approval or denial would significantly affect any of your pecuniary interests?
Not at all.
Do you believe that any approval or denial would affect any financial interests of a family member of yours or business partner of yours?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other disclosures? Of all the ones, I missed that one.
Roger hadn't started
Thanks.
yet. He's good.
Well, I'm getting to the retirement mode here. Okay, so let's go ahead and open the public hearing. Roger, knock yourself out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you see my presentation on your screens?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful, thank you. So this is a tentative map number 21-006 for Silver Hills Village 1. The request, again, is to allow a 358 lot subdivision. This is with lot sizes from 5,000 to about 8,000 square feet. The subdivision is proposed to be located here in North Valleys. Here's Red Rock Road. Here in red is the site. The overall specific plan, the Silver Hills specific plan, also encompasses this area over here on the east side of Red Rock, but the project itself is just here in the northeast corner of the western portion. As we can see, again, here's Red Rock Road. Here in this northeastern corner, here is the proposed subdivision. This is a relatively traditional lot and block, very linear subdivision, but notice we also have area here around the edge in the red, and that is area that is proposed to be dedicated as common open space. The result of this area, as well as a small common area here and a small trailhead proposed here, results in right at 3 dwelling units to the acre total. Here we're zooming in just a little bit. This is a representation of the subdivision. The brown blocks here do not represent houses necessarily, but rather the building envelope for each of these proposed parcels. This project is, as I mentioned, within the Silver Hills specific plan area. For that reason, it is required to comply with the Silver Hills Development Standards Handbook, which is actually part of the master plan. That's part of Volume 2. That's how that was implemented. Many of you may remember this. It came before this board a couple of 3 times over the last year or two. Likewise, this is required to comply with the elements of the North Valleys Area Plan, again, another part of the master plan. Part of the Silver Hills community statement is that, among other things, that the specific plan area would provide for a variety of housing options, and then go on to do things like preserve the area's character by density matching, open space, and other things of that nature. Now, all of these are dealt with in substantial detail in your staff report, so I'm going to hit this from a little bit of a high level during this presentation. What I would point out is that this tentative map does not provide for a variety of housing options. It provides for 1 single-family dwellings on 5,000 to 8,000 foot lots. Again, very linear. Other phases or other villages in the future might implement this later on, but none of that is shown here tonight. Again, the overall density is 3 to the acre. The architecture is required to be sort of a mountain ranch theme. That conditions of approval have been crafted to require that the design review committee for the subdivision would make that determination. There are limitations on the number of dwellings that can be, I should say, the number of lots that can be recorded in any 1 year, and that would be 150 until improvements to I-580, that sort of that northern portion that we all know is a real problem getting down into town from the North Valleys, until improvements are undertaken. Front yard setbacks are required, again, under the specific plan, to be varied. The application put forward essentially alternates between 15 and 17 feet front yard setbacks, and that only for the front of the dwelling portion of the house, but all of the garages would be set at 20 feet. There are trails that are proposed to be constructed with this phase of development, with the first phase. And all of those trails must be within dedicated common area, again, according to the requirements of the specific plan. The common open space, as shown, does not include all of those trails. So the final map, if this in fact does get approved, would include additional common areas, which would include all the trails that are required to be constructed with phase 1. Again, so with these sort of positives and negatives, this really complies with most, but not down to the letter, not necessarily all of the policies within the North Valleys Area Plan and the Development Standards Handbook. This was not heard by the North Valley Citizen Advisory Board. The meeting for June was canceled. The applicant did conduct a neighborhood meeting that was held at the Cold Springs Family Center at 18400 Village Parkway from 6 to 7:30 on Thursday, June 17th. I was present. I did take a few notes there, but the applicant will present the results from that meeting to the Planning Commission during their presentation. The surrounding property owners were notified. A total of 52 parcels were selected at a 500-foot radius from the subject site. This application went through the standard review process. All of the reviewing agencies who provided comments, those comments have been included in the conditions of approval that have been provided in your staff report as attachment A. Many of the technical aspects that perhaps with the impacts that may be created, things like water runoff and traffic, those sorts of things. We do have engineering here available with us this evening to answer those specific types of evaluation questions. The findings necessary for approval of a tentative subdivision map are included on pages 16 and 17 of your staff report, but I'd just like to go over the comments on each one of these. Is this consistent with the master plan? Generally speaking, yes. In a certain specific instances, no. This is really one of the big reasons why staff is bringing forward neither a recommendation of approval nor a recommendation of denial. Generally speaking, the subdivision meets the criteria for a standard, standalone, lot and block, very traditional subdivision. It does not, however, necessarily provide for a variety of housing options. We don't have a set of architecture to evaluate, so we don't know if it will in fact have sort of the mountain ranch theme and those sorts of things that are important in the specific plan itself, but conditions of approval have been included which would allow those things to happen. So again, this is a very fine balancing act. And I'll take a moment and say a no recommendation is a relatively unusual recommendation from staff. I recognize that. But again, this is one of those ones that from staff perspective is depending upon your evaluation, you may choose to go one way or the other, I think. Designer improvement is consistent with the master plan and specific plan. Generally speaking, yes, the technical design elements, streets, sewer, water, meet code requirements and other conditions of approval have been included that would ensure that compliance with the goals and intent of the specific plan may be achieved. Type of development. Yes, this is a relatively flat area. There are certainly some rolling hills. There are some drainage ways. Those drainage ways are proposed to be in the common open space area. That's one of the reasons we have common open spaces, to protect those areas that do have resource constraints. Yeah, the type of development is certainly suitable for the topography there. Availability of services. Yes, water, sewer, roads, electricity, all of those sorts of things are conditioned to be provided and are within the application materials. Fish and wildlife, there are no endangered species identified in this project area. Public health, again, with community water and community sewer, we don't have a problem with overdensity of septic tanks or anything of that nature. And again, the water will be provided by a public system and therefore it will be presumably safe to drink. Requirements for easements. Yes, all of the required easements are going to be required. Again, those technical considerations of that type will be reviewed by other agencies such as engineering, health, those sorts of folks, to make sure that we have all those that are necessary. Access. Yes, we have open space, which will include sort of a strip of open space around the perimeter of the project area. There is a trail head that is proposed to be constructed again with the first phase of development. That would be accessible both to pedestrians and equestrians as well. The common areas, for dedications, any land to be dedicated to the county, there's no land dedicated to Washoe County with this map. The common areas will remain under the ownership of the developer and then later the homeowners association. But conditions of approval have been included, as is very common, that the common areas will be dedicated for that purpose in perpetuity. They can't then later be developed. Is the subdivision provide for natural heating and cooling? There was no particular emphasis on orientation of the dwellings for solar heating or cooling, anything of that nature. This is a very, very typical traditional lot and block development with very, very little, if any, variation between lots. So, because again, in many ways, the tentative subdivision map may be seen to meet the requirements for a standalone, very traditional subdivision, but in other circumstances does not necessarily implement the goals of the specific plan. Again, I'm bringing forward neither recommendation nor denial to the commission. My recommendation is you evaluate this information, what is provided later during the hearing, the information you received in the staff report, and if you choose to make to approve, we have a motion for approval. And should you decide the opposite way, we also have a motion for denial available to you. With that, I am available for any questions that the commission may have.
Does the applicant have a presentation and I'll bring it all back for questions after the
I think I heard something, someone speaking?
I'm sorry, Roger. I had my microphone off. At this time, I think we'll hold questions for you and listen to the applicant's presentation and then bring it back to the commission to for questions from both staff and the applicant, if that's okay with you guys. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Garrett Gordon for the record. Yes, I do. Appreciate the time. Let me share my screen. Are we good? Everyone can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Perfect. Well, good evening again. Really appreciate the time. Tonight, Garrett Gordon on behalf of Lifestyle Homes, as well as Mike Raley is here with Christie Corporation, the planner, as well as Paul Salegi, our traffic engineer, as well as Bob and Peter Listener, owner and operator of Lifestyle Homes. As you heard tonight before you is a tentative map, 358 single-family units. This is one of a series of tentative maps that you'll see as we continue to build out the specific plan of the Silver Hills project. As you recall, a total of 1,872 units were approved. So this is Village 1. Exciting enough, Village 1 includes the Silver Hills Backbone Trail Network, which we touted a few years ago before you, and access to BLM lands, along with a dedicated trailhead that is much needed in the community. Project location is mentioned by Roger, Silver Hills East, Silver Hills West, and this village is in the top northeast corner of Silver Hills West. Project history and timeline. I think this is important. It's been a couple years since we were before you with this project. We've been working hard through the out the entitlements. We're before you in 2019, before the Board of County Commissioners, the end of 19, Regional Planning Commission at the end of 19 and going into 2020, final approval in February of 2020. And then as mentioned earlier, there was litigation by the Silver Knolls organization. They sued the county and us, and that was dismissed by the courts. Every single count was dismissed. This entitlement was upheld, and now we're excited to be past the entitlements, past the litigation, and start building homes, is what Lifestyle Homes loves to do and looks forward to doing it here. To refresh your memory, the Silver Hills Land Use Plan. So again, on the east side of Red Rock, we have 1 unit per acre. On the west side, we have 3 units per acre. Village 1 is on the west side, and as you heard from staff, our units combined with the open space that we're preserving in the tentative map, and again, preserving in perpetuity as open space is the basis for the map and equals out to 3 units per acre. This same slide was shown by staff, again, a developable area combined with all the open space that will be dedicated in perpetuity results in 3 units per acre. So the summary is project area, 120 acres, area to be developed is only 65. The balance is all open space, 358 single family homes. As we go through here, the remaining permitted units west of Red Rock will be 1,296, combined with both sides, 1514. So again, the point here is this is Village 1. There's many villages to come. As you heard from staff, there was some comments about what those future villages will look like and will they comply with the handbook? Absolutely. This one complies with the handbook, as will future maps comply with the handbook. Site plan that was shown by staff. So the important points. This is the dedicated public trailhead with equestrian access and parking, including horse trailers. We heard those comments as we went through the visioning workshops 2 years ago. We incorporated those into our specific plan. It was required that that trailhead occur in this Village 1 in the first map. So that's a great amenity added to the community. Community pocket park, dedicated backbone trail network providing legal public access to BLM lands. That was very important throughout the handbook entitlement process, and now it's coming to fruition. Internal green belts provide community walking paths and links to future agri-hood, public facilities, and community amenities. Again, this is a long-term project. It's brick by brick of maps, making sure we comply with the handbook and piecing this development together. So this is step 1 of many future steps. And again, all amenities will be open to the public and maintained by the HOA. And there was a comment by staff that, you know, we may or may not comply with the trail obligations, but clearly we comply with them on our map. And there's 14 pages of conditions of approval. One specifically requires prior to the final map, there's a double check by staff just to ensure that all aspects of the handbook are complied with, including trails, which we're fully prepared to construct in accordance with the handbook. Public trailheads, as mentioned by staff, big component to this Village 1, split rail fence, hitching post, again, equestrian and trailer friendly, and maintained by the HOA, but open to the public, which is important. The backbone trail plan, you can see the future trails along with the trails to be constructed in Village 1. That is the white dashed line. So that white dashed line will be constructed again in conjunction with Village 1, and no final map can be recorded unless all conditions are satisfied, which would include construction of the trail plan. These are all from the handbook, some entries and wayfinding signs. Community fencing, this was important as we went through the process of the handbook, will all be implemented. Future homes must have setback variation. That was included in our application. It shows setback variation a lot, but again, a condition of approval requires as we bring in final maps, which are, not just the whole tentative map area, but usually are done in additional phases, staff will have the opportunity to review and ensure that variations occur, as well as articulation. And again, nothing can occur, no C of O, no final map, unless the handbook standards are complied with. Regional parks, public trailhead backbone trails, again, to be completed in Village 1. Legal pedestrian equestrian access to public lands enhances that pedestrian and equestrian access to the Silver Nose Park, which was important in the entitlement process. Village 1 Pocket Park will be open to the public. And per the specific plan commitments, Lifestyle Homes will work closely with the Washoe County Parks to complete a survey for what improvements are needed at the Silver Nose Park to be included in the 500th unit, 10 acres minimum. So there's many amenities to come. Again, this is step one of many steps throughout the coming years. A village-specific impact analysis was completed. Paul Slagy's here to answer any questions, but the traffic requirements or improvements are a left turn lane to be added to Red Rock at Silver Hills Parkway, along with some dedicated right-of-way. If you recall, there was a condition of approval put on by the County Commission that says no more than 150 homes may be constructed per year until the 395 North Valleys Project 1B commences. A report identifies future improvements at the 395 Red Rock interchange and provides mitigation measures to ensure acceptable levels of service. And if you also recall, RTC acceptable level of service is D, but the North Valleys has a more stringent standard. That level of service shall be C. So this village, just like the overall development, will comply as confirmed by the traffic study as we move forward with maps to level of service C. And the project will contribute approximately $1.8 million traffic impacts fees, which only helps with the regional road network. Washoe County School District, Pacific Plan reserves property for new elementary school. Per Washoe County School District, the elementary school is not needed with Village 1. So again, that's important. And you saw in our site plan, we are reserving land for elementary school. It's not needed yet, but in future phases, it will be provided. Stormwater will be retained at a rate of 1 to 1.5 per handbook. Again, this is over and above code. Most stringent stormwater retention rate in the region, 1 to 1.5. This ensures it flows to Silver Lake are reduced over what occurs in today pre-development conditions. Again, there'll be a final hydrology report required in conjunction with the final map that confirms the handbook standards are required, and these stringent requirements will be complied with. And common areas will include infrastructure to accept effluent reuse. Project considerations, level of service C must be maintained, primary access via the first leg of Silver Hills Parkway Loop. Only direct neighborhood access to Red Rock is gated, secondary emergency access. Community meeting was held on June 17th, 2021. Traffic and access to public lands were discussed. Provisions for ATV access will be made based on community request. So I want to focus on the findings that staff mentioned. There's 10 of them. We comply with every single one. Let me focus on number 1 for a moment. That was mentioned by staff. Plan consistency. Does this application comply with the Silver Hills specific handbook, the North Valleys area plan? The answer is absolutely yes. The handbook fully complies with the specific plan standards and implements a number of other policies. The staff report confirms you can see policy after policy that complies with. So we're 100% in compliance. This question about variety of housing options, let me address that. So number 1, that language for providing a variety of housing is in the character statement. Character statement is what implements the Silver Hills handbook. So it was a requirement in our handbook to have different options for housing. We comply with that. You can see here from our handbook, there's 3 categories of neighborhoods. Low density neighborhood, number 1, mid-range single family neighborhood, number 2, the page numbers are there, 2.6, 2.9, and 3, suburban single family neighborhood. 3 options for neighborhoods. You can see right from the Silver Hills handbook, it says the goal of providing these neighborhoods is provide flexibility in order to encourage a wide range of single family home types. Absolutely, there's different options that you can use for different maps at different times. We chose for village number 1 to go under mid-range single-family neighborhood. And you can see it defines it as mid-range density subdivisions. This is a mid-range density subdivision. It doesn't require you to do 3 different neighborhoods and combine all of them into one subdivision. It's very simple. The first subdivision is mid-range, requires pedestrian connectivity, which we comply with, the trails and sidewalks. This is our first village. And to make sure we're kind of in compliance with what that village says, page 2.10 of the handbook shows what this village should look like, what this subdivision should look like. I'll point to you up in the left-hand corner, the first picture is a tentative map example of exactly what we're doing. A one product, one density, one neighborhood of this mid-range single-family neighborhood. You can see typical mid-range single-family neighborhood. All these pictures show its densities within that mid-range single-family neighborhood, a map that shows what that would typically look like, and our tentative map looks exactly like that. Next, month or in 6 months or, in a year, when we come with the next map, we have an option. We'll potentially go low-density neighborhood or suburban single-family neighborhood. But again, the purpose of all this is to provide options, not to mandate it, provide options. And again, to provide flexibility and to include a wide range of housing types. So the first wide range of housing types will be our mid-range single-family neighborhood and in our mid-range density subdivision that looks exactly like page 2.10 from our handbook. So we're very comfortable that we absolutely meet that legal finding A. Legal finding B and C, again, we comply with all the design standards and improvements and code requirements are complied with on our map, or 14 pages worth of conditions of approval. Absolutely make sure, double checks, verifies, checks the box that we meet all conditions of approval. Availability of services, staff said yes. Public health, staff said yes. Fish or wildlife, staff said yes. Easements, access, dedication, staff mentioned all those. So a summary of the legal findings is all map findings approval can be made. The proposed tentative map fully complies with the plan. We're creating our first neighborhood of mid-range residential, implements a number of other policies, including the North Valleys Area Plan. The site is well suited for this development, and we're looking forward to developing another quality product that helps solve current housing shortage. And let me one last thing in closing, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time. Page 219 of the staff report says, if the Planning Commission grants approval, the approval is subject to conditions of approval. Conditions of approval are requirements that need to be completed during different stages of the proposed project. Again, different stages. These stages are typically prior to recording a final map, prior to recording a C of O, prior to a business license. Some conditions are also operational. So this is very standard that you don't have to put the exact detail of every piece of the puzzle in the handbook on the map. You have conditions of approval, which I know this body has seen for decades on every tentative map, that the conditions show you have to comply with them before you go forward. Very typical, not unusual. And again, we feel very confident we meet all the standards. We look forward to building a quality product of homes as promised by Lifestyle, and look forward to bringing our next map to you soon. And I'm here, Mike Raley's here, and Paul Slaggy is here for any questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring it back to the commission for questions of staff or the applicant. And we can go around the dais, or you can just start asking questions. Larry or Mike, do we have anything out there in space?
Nothing for me, sir. Thank you.
I was just, this is Mike. I was just curious, since I'm the new kid on the block. Is it typical that staff doesn't make a recommendation?
Well, actually, no, it's not typical that staff doesn't make a recommendation unless they feel that they've presented both sides of the case and truly don't have a recommendation. And I've been on this thing 7 years. I can only think of 4 or 5 instances where we've had, no, not had a recommendation. So.
Okay, this is Mike again. Is the reason why we don't have a staff recommendation is that there's information that's either incomplete or not available to make a recommendation?
Trevor, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I will do my best, and maybe Roger can, I don't, again, this is Roger's project, I don't want to speak for him. I think the answer may be in the application itself. Again, there's many policies or requirements of the entire project, the entire Silver Hills development. This is a small piece of that. And I think Roger may have had a hard time getting his arms around the rest of the requirements, as they will likely come with future phases of the development. But in terms of this small piece, I don't think you could find all of those policies as part of just this one small piece. I hope that answers your question. Roger, feel free to jump in also if you want to elaborate.
Certainly. Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is again Roger Pelham with Washoe County Planning. Yeah, I think Trevor sort of hit it. I am not convinced that the intent of the specific plan is being met by this tentative map. I would point out that conditions of approval are meant to implement the specific requirements, more technical requirements. And I think that and I think that probably the conditions of approval as presented to you are going to do that. If this were a standalone 3 dwelling units to the acre lot and block subdivision, probably I would not have the discomfort that I have otherwise. We do not have the entire project to evaluate. If I had the remainder of the project to evaluate, and I could say that, yes, this section is mid-range neighborhood, and here you have standard, and here you have high density, probably I would have greater confidence. But there is nothing in evidence today to say that those things are going to be done in the future. They might, then again, they might not. There are other policies which are perhaps relatively minor, things like minimizing the use of curb and gutter. Well, no, this really doesn't do that. That's a North Valley's area plan policy. This doesn't really do that. Again, this is an incredibly traditional lot and block pattern of development. I would say that probably the design itself, I have some discomfort with, because it really doesn't reflect sort of what was shown, what Mr. Gordon showed, how there were some of, in the layout that was shown in the specific plan itself, some of the blocks were long, some were short, some were linear, some were curved. This really doesn't demonstrate that. This is, again, just very long, very linear, lot and block. It's really, it may or may not be seen to be consistent, again, based upon your judgment. So certainly I have some discomfort with that. Again, on the other hand, the minimum requirements for a subdivision have been met. Have the overall policies been met? Has the overall character been implemented as it is required to be? I am not convinced of that. Therefore, I am bringing forward the documentation to you but am reserving my recommendation. And again, to put this on the record, I don't know how many projects I've evaluated over the years, but I've probably come forward with a no recommendation a handful of times, maybe half a dozen times in 20 years plus now. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Roger.
Chair Chesney, I apologize if I may. I just wanted to make you aware that Garrett Gordon with the presenter did have his hand raised, so I don't know if at any point you were going to go back to them. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
It's up to the commission. It depends on their questions.
Chair Chesney?
Yes.
I believe this period of time is for the commission to ask questions of staff and the applicant.
Okay.
So it's our floor right now.
Okay. Does anybody have any
Thank you.
questions for Gordon, for the applicant?
It looks like Francine has some questions, and then I do as well.
There was just a couple of clarifications. Roger, when you talked about the front yard setbacks being between 15 and 17, I got the opinion that you weren't comfortable that was enough of a variation. What is the more standard, I mean, from what you were saying, there are more standard variations for that?
There is no particular standard in this case for variation of setbacks. And basically the handbook calls for a variation in setback, but it's not specific on what that might look like. What this applicant has brought forward is to alternate each house. So, for example, house number 1 would be, the front would be at 15, house number 2 at 17, house number 3 at 15, house number 4 at 17, and so on. That would apply only to the portion of the dwelling that comes forward, sort of the entryway, if you will. But in all cases, the garage would be set at exactly 20. So does that provide for a variation in setback that provides less linear, more organic sort of aspect to the neighborhood? It can be seen to meet the criteria. It is certainly a variation. Is it enough? That is sort of up to your judgment.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mike Flick again. I also understand, I'm going back in my history, where I came from, a specific plan becomes the zone. And the deviation from that, requires an amendment. I'm a little concerned, and I know this is an extremely complex project. It's a big project. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and nobody has the answers to all those parts today. But I'm concerned that if we don't treat, say, phase 1 as a complete package, meeting all the requirements, that we might be coming back like we did earlier tonight and throw out the original criteria for the specific plan, and I'm talking about the Village Greens Commerce project. And so there was no architectural control, and primarily was able to do whatever he wants to do if it ever gets approved. So I don't know if I'm trying to clear this up or if I'm throwing more mud in it, but those are some of the concerns I have. I understand the developer's dilemma and trying to not commit as much as we want him to commit to something. But 2 feet, who's going to recognize 2 feet driving down the street as far as a setback is concerned? I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mike. We're gonna bring this back to the commission after public comment for a discussion amongst us. And so keep those thoughts in mind. Do we have any further questions of the applicant or staff at this time?
Chair Chesney.
Commissioner Savilicek.
Thank you. With regards to in finding that it's in compliance with number 1, plan consistency, that the proposed map is consistent with the master plan, and any specific plan also includes the North Valley's area plan. And I'm struggling to find compliance with this. And in Roger's report, so Roger, you might, well, first off, the applicant's representative said that the proposed tentative map is identical to what was seen on page 210 of the Silver Hero specific plan development. On page 210 of the specific plan development standards, that rendition of streets and placing is a lot more eye-appealing than this straight utilitarian, straight long blocks, long streets, just very.
So I'm asking, is there a question in
Yes,
this?
I'm getting there,
Okay.
please. So I have questions about the specific design. And then Roger, in your report, when you say yes, may or may not, the things that are most troubling to me is you said that that the applicant would come back to us with a statement from the public meeting, and I didn't hear much of that, so I'd like to hear more on what the public specifically said about this project. And in terms of, and then I am anxious to hear from the traffic study, because they're saying that some impact will have some impact on traffic. So that's a concern that I have.
Thank you very much for the question. I will try to address each one of those individually. The first is, yes, I was at that public meeting. It was actually fairly well attended. There were about 15, maybe 20 folks there. It was actually really quite cordial. Primarily, the questions dealt with things like access, and I believe the applicant's representative mentioned that they're going to be including things like ATV access to the adjacent public lands. There were any number of questions that were variations on when will this development happen adjacent to my existing parcel? And the answers were generally variations on, we don't know because that's really going to be market driven. There were, again, any number of questions on really that was the biggest on how much the dwellings are probably going to cost, and again the answer being we don't know. That's market driven. You all are probably aware that building materials are increasing in price rapidly right now. There was, in my opinion, relatively little substantive criticism or substantive changes that were requested by those citizens that were in attendance. To move on to whether or not essentially the lot and block layout that we have is in fact the same or consistent with the type of neighborhood streets shown in the specific plan, that is a judgment call. You, in your wisdom, may evaluate that layout versus what is requested by the applicant, and that is up to your judgment. I think that we can see my opinion, we can see some definite differences in terms of the very consistent design of the proposed layout by the applicant. And in terms of traffic, what the impact will be in this area, I would really prefer to leave that to the traffic engineer or to Washoe County Engineering, because I will admit without reservation that the traffic study is out of my depth.
Does that,
I would like the statement around the traffic study to be, I mean, in terms of what is some impact. So if that's the engineer for the project or county engineering, I really would like the question about defining some impact.
yeah, I don't think we're going to get that answer tonight.
Salegi is here.
Our traffic engineer is prepared to answer that question.
Sure.
Well, good evening. Paul Salegi is my name. I prepared the traffic study. The primary point of concern, the intersections on Red Rock in the vicinity of the project, we have recommendations, and we find that those accesses will all meet level of service policy. However, down at the freeway ramps, we found that the freeway ramps currently operate below policy levels. And so we are adding some additional traffic there. So that is why we have the statement of there is some impact. It's below policy level of service. We're adding some additional traffic. However, RTC has planned improvements on Red Rock beginning down at the freeway. And so they're in the RTC roadway planning system, roadway improvements will be coming in time. Our project is going to generate substantial traffic impact fee revenue. And so this will be, there's a plan that those improvements will be resolved through regional construction. And so in my mind, I guess a final point would be Washoe County, RTC, and ANDOT all have review letters in the packet with no negative comments on traffic by the traffic engineers. So we feel that our plan to contribute to the ultimate solution through impact fees, identifying that there was some impact, but their plan is moving forward. That's our answer, if that's sufficient. I can discuss it at greater length if you would like.
Mr. Chairman,
Spillichek, do you have any further
time
questions?
I know Roger got a chance to answer some of those questions. It'd be great for us to go on the record too, on behalf of the applicant.
Could I ask Mr. Salegi one question?
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, when you talk about your trip generation rates, you talk about the 10th edition of the ITT trip generation 2018. Is that the latest, greatest edition?
Yes, this is Paul Salegi. That's the most current published edition. It's we've had 10 volumes of it through the years, and this is the most current available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions before I open this for public comment? Hearing none, I'm going to open this up for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
I have no public comment in chambers.
And Chair Chesney, I do not have any hands raised on Zoom.
Any public comment from the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. And I think we'll just, I don't know, where a minute. Hold on. I think we're going to start, I'm just going to take it by the roll call. Francine, do you have any comments?
First off, I want to say thank you to Roger and staff for putting the documents together, but I have serious concerns about what's been presented to us as to really if it meets the characteristics of the plans, of our master plans and the area plan, North Valley's plan, with the way they're, no offense, manipulating what they're presenting to us.
Okay. Sarah, do you have any comments?
I am deeply troubled that I understand that this is what's before us is a tentative map for Village 1. But in terms of Silver Hills has been in front of this commission numerous times. There is suggested changes brought to us each time. There's references to agribusiness in terms of being able to have community hoop houses and such. That's in a statement, but there's nothing there to support that. I am deeply concerned about the traffic. We can hear somebody say that we're contributing to impact fees. I get that. The current condition on 395 traveling out of the valley and back into the valley is atrocious. The current condition, leaving the valley and returning to the valley, is atrocious. So any additional impact is going to continue to have a negative impact on the well-being of everyone that lives in that valley. In terms of the design of Village 1, matching what is already existing in Silver Knolls, it doesn't match. I grant that this project is far enough removed from any development, but this is a very intense development, and this is not meant to be a judgment, but the current plan is boring in terms of what is already presented in the valley, with even on the portion of Silver Knolls that is 3 acres to the lot, 3 dwellings to the acre. So I have real concerns that this is going to continue to come back to us, and it's going to be different each and every time. And this is for Washoe County planning staff. I am deeply troubled that there appears to be a pattern of a lack of engagement from citizens advisory boards. That's all I have, Chair Chesney.
Thank you. Mike, Mr. Fink, Flick, excuse me. Would you like to make comment on the record now with any concerns that you have? You had some really good stuff earlier.
Well, thank you. This is Mike Flick again. I think, I just feel uncomfortable because I haven't read these specific plans or seen them yet. And that's because I just got appointed. So I need to become more familiar with what's already on the books there, that this development and others have to comply before I can really make a good judgment or establish a comfort level with what staff has presented and what the applicant has presented. I've developed a few things in my life, certainly not this size, but the complexities of putting a package together like this is no easy task. And with the economy and the materials in the current condition, the developer wants to and needs to be as flexible as possible. We, on the other hand, need to know what the product is and take steps to make sure that it complies with our requirements in the law, so we get that product. And like I said, there may be some things already in these specific plans that I haven't had a chance to see or read yet, that may give me a better comfort level. But right now, I don't have it, and that's no fault of staff, and that's no fault of the applicant. That's just me being new and haven't been able to do some research on the various specific plans and the way you folks operate here. Obviously, the conditions in the specific plan were put there for a reason. The prior commissions just didn't make this stuff up out of thin air. They had a reason to put this stuff there. And I feel that it's our obligation to make sure that they're there or modify the plan so that we are in compliance. That's all I can say right now.
Thank you, Mike. Kate, would you like to throw your 2 cents worth in?
Sure, I'll throw my 2 cents in. I agree that we are just looking at a tentative map for the first phase of this development. I'm struggling. I don't know if it was the developer or if it was Roger that said, you know, the numerous pages of conditions for approval is like a check and balance of making sure that they are in accordance with the plan consistency and the design or improvement of the subdivision. But in going through the conditions of approval, I don't see that it absolutely points them in that direction. So I don't feel that that is 100% of a check and a balance. I'm also concerned, we've seen more and more where they've had no CAB meetings. I think that's gonna be an issue moving forward because we have, you know, no input from the community if they aren't able to hold those meetings. So I think that's another one of my concerns.
Thank you. Larry Payton, do you have any comments?
As far as this goes, if I don't get an approval from staff when they've done all their research and they've reviewed all the reports and everything from traffic to fire and all of that, until I get an approval from staff, I'm not comfortable approving this. That's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Pat Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I was looking at this, we're a planning commission, and you are looking for a plan. And what I see of this specific request is it's more of a footprint to establish, hey, we're here, rather than the vision of what we're looking for in a neighborhood. And you need something a little bit more concrete at this time.
Okay, so that leaves the odd guy out, that's me. And I share every one of your concerns. This is a big project. We are getting a snapshot of a small portion of the project. It has a lot of moving parts to it. We're only seeing one moving part. And until I get a comfortable feeling in my mind, and as to what the big picture is, where there's gonna be higher density housing, where there's gonna be commercial development, where there's gonna be whatever in these towns, we see repeatedly on this commission these piecemealed villages. You build one this year and then 15 years later you come back and you want to change the conditions and you want to do this and you want to do that and you want to do that. I want to see a package. I want to know what's going to be built, where it's going to be built. I'm not comfortable with this at all. I am absolutely uncomfortable with, on whoever's duty it is, to put these CAB meetings together in a timely fashion so that especially a development of this magnitude that there needs to be more public scrutiny and not just a meeting, a local meeting called by the developer. This goes on and on and on, and we're talking about schools. And these traffic impact studies are a mind blower, because whatever models you're using, this is nothing personal to Leggy, but whatever models you're using, whatever models NDOT's using, the money isn't there for these improvements till years and years out, sometimes 15 to 20 years out. So it's the impacts that are going to occur with the first 150 homes that can be built as soon as you break ground. Then another 150 homes. And I sit on an RTC committee. I mean, and we're talking about gridlocked roadways right now. Pyramid Highway, perfect example, that are at gridlock. And no relief in sight for 30 years. Waiting on federal funds, state funds, and all this to be coordinated, then engineering and so on. So, you know, these traffic studies today, as far as I'm concerned, are error. So at this point in time, I cannot, you know, I'm not going to support this. So we've
Chair
all had our
Chesney.
say. Anybody else want a second shot at it?
Chair Chesney, I would just like to point out a couple things. With regards to the CAB meetings, I would just remind the board that CAB meetings are not required by the development code, and that there was a neighborhood meeting. So I would just encourage you not to consider that as dispositive in this case. And then as far as, I know there was a comment made about, well, if staff can't support it, I can't support it. Please just keep in mind that you are an independent body, and that, of course, while staff's comments can be considered, everyone does need to make their own individual decisions based specifically on the 10 different things that are labeled here under Washoe County Code 110.608.25, beginning with plan consistency, et cetera.
Thank you, Jennifer, and I appreciate that. But all too often, whether the code requires it or not, we have citizens advisory boards for a very special and specific need, and that is for the local population of the entire area, the CAB area. It doesn't just affect the Silver Knolls operation, everything that goes on in the North Valley's CAB. This affects all those people. And so I come from a CAB background. A lot of our commissioners come from a CAB background, and their input is extremely important, whether the code requires it or not. And so I'm not buying that the county can't get a CAB meeting together before a project of this magnitude is brought in front of us. So, who else wants a shot? Okay. Seeing there's no further discussion, I guess I'll call for a motion.
Chair Chesney.
Commissioner Donchek.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission deny tentative map case number WTM 21-006 for Lifestyle Homes, TND LLC, being unable to find all 10 findings in code section 110.608.25, specifically 1, plans consistency, and 2, design or improvement.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Donchek. Do we have a second?
Go ahead, Pat. Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Donchek and a second by Commissioner Phillips. Is there any discussion on the motion?
This is Mike Flick again. Myself, I would prefer to continue it, but I probably don't have the votes.
Okay. So I think that this requires a roll call vote. So Lacey, could you give us,
Yes, thank you, Chair. Larry Chesney,
no, or I mean, yes, I approve the motion, yeah, yes.
okay. Francine Donchik,
Aye.
Sarah Savilichek,
Aye.
Michael Flick,
No.
Kate Nelson,
Aye.
Larry Payton,
Aye.
Pat Phillips.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. I guess it's only fair if those of you that supported the motion would like to give your, which parts of the plan you didn't agree with? Like, is it just plan consistencies, design improvement, or do we need to go that deep, Jennifer?
You don't have to do that. The motion was for number 1 and number 2.
Okay.
On the list, and that was what everyone agreed with by voting aye for the motion, except for, apart for
Okay.
one person who voted nay.
So the motion passes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if I can read the appeal procedure, please.
sure, oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, Trevor, the appeal procedure.
Okay, most decisions rendered by the Planning Commission are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission and you want to appeal its action, you may do so in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is signed by the Planning Commission Chair and/or the Secretary of the Planning Commission, filed with the Secretary of the Planning Commission, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you. Well, this has been quite an exciting evening. A lot of good discussion. So I'm going to move on to item 10, chair and commission items. Item A is discussion and election of planning commission officers, including the chair and vice chair for a one-year period running from July 20th, 2021 to July 2022. So I would consider a motion for, I am termed out.
Mr. Chairman, I think we have good leadership here. I would like to make a motion, we retain the officers for the next year.
Jen Gustafson for the record. I just wanted to remind the planning commission that under Planning Commission Rule 5.03, each officer is limited to 2 consecutive terms, and I'm not familiar who's termed out or who's not termed out, so I will leave that to you to discuss, but just to remind you, for each individual position, it's 2 consecutive terms, and then you have to give it a break, so.
Right, well, I.
Chair Chesney.
I've done 2 years.
Okay.
Chair Chesney.
Commissioner Savilichek.
I would like to nominate Vice Chair Don Check for Chair of the Washoe County Planning Commission.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Savilichek, second by Commissioner Nelson. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Can we ask, Ms. Johnchek, would you accept that nomination if you were?
Yes, I would.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't talk to her, but I thought she would.
Just in
Okay,
case
all
she
those
said
in
no.
favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Okay, next. Do I give her the gavel now and she gets the
No, you finished the meeting.
No,
No,
that's
I think it's
leadership
you're it.
transition.
Already?
automatic transition.
Oh,
See, that's the thing, it's just like.
Take the whole thing.
well,
Get you out of this. Okay, you need to elect a vice chair, and I would like to, as Commissioner Chesney, I would like to nominate Commissioner Savilichek as vice chair.
I second that.
Commissioner Savilichek, would you accept that nomination?
Yes, I would.
Okay, is there any discussion on the nomination? Okay, seeing no discussion, oh, wait a minute, no, that's your deal.
Mr.
I'm all screwed up.
That's okay, I'm trying to read the paperwork, too.
Francine, get on it, will you?
Commissioner Chesney, you, oh, I was going to say, you can't keep the gavel any longer.
You gotta hand that off too.
I already have it.
No, this is the chairs.
Oh, is that, oh. It's a special one, okay.
All you need to do is just finish this.
So we have a motion and a second on the motion for Commissioner Savilichek for chair
Vice Chair.
or vice chair. Can we take a vote, please?
Say all in favor?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Moving right along,
Any opposed?
any opposed? Carries. Anything for future agenda items, ladies and gentlemen? Hearing nothing for future agenda items, we'll move on to 10C, request for information from staff.
Chair Donchak.
Yes, Vice Chair.
And I don't know, I mean, this is just a minor point, but the Julie's presentation for Cold Springs and Roger's presentation for Silver Hills, the school numbers were not in agreement. So if there was in terms of if we could be consistent with the percentages of school populations, and I can give you specific references, but if, for future, when we see that, if we could see like, they should be identical, since they were talking about the exact same schools.
Chair Donchak, I also have a question of staff. It stems from the fire that we had down south this last month. They had a small portion of the outside closed, and the gridlock that it caused.
Commissioner Nelson, is your mic on?
I don't know. So, hello?
Okay, now,
So the gridlock that it caused was incredible. And so I didn't know, as part of the planning process, what do they do for fire evacuation planning during, I mean, we're adding 300 homes, we're adding a substantial amount of traffic in any one area. So I was just curious about that.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. Through the chair, our new chair, I don't know that I'm prepared to answer that question at this time, but that is a very good discussion, and keep in mind, we do put a lot of emphasis on fire preservation or fire suppression as well as evacuation routes whenever we're looking through, whether it's a tentative map, master plan. But that certainly is a discussion we need to have with this planning commission and keep you all up to speed in terms of those very important situations that are inevitable. So, thank you.
thank you. Director's Legal Counsel items. Are there any reports on previous commission items?
Nothing to report.
Jan, are there any legal information updates?
There we go. I don't know that this is technically a legal update. However, I do want to let you know that the former legal counsel to this board, Mr. Nate Edwards, has been promoted. So he is now the assistant district attorney over all of the civil division in my office. So if you happen to see him, I know many of you worked with him for many years, please feel free to send him his congratulations. So he's just one step underneath the DA at this point in time. So he's gone on to some great things.
Well,
Well, if you would
congratulations.
send our congratulations on to him.
Certainly.
Okay, at this point, item 12, is there any further public comment?
I have no public comment in chambers.
Chair Donchik, I do not have any public comment on Zoom.
I don't have a public comment, but I forgot to bring one item up on the last item. Under Exhibit A, page 3 of 14, where it talks about the final maps and the maximum lots, there's a typo where it talks about NDOT has commenced work on I-80 instead of I-580. So I forgot to bring that up. So if there's no further public comment, I will join a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time tonight.